Big day for India, for the Indian Space Research Organization. All eyes are on Vikram lander. Chandrayaan 3, will it be a successful mission? Have the lessons from the last time, the unsuccessful attempt last time, have they been learned? Let me go across to somebody who's seen this from very close quarters. Dr. G. Madhavan Nair is the former chairman of the Indian Space Research Organization. Thank you very much, sir, for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. First things first, this is a day of excitement for all of us Indians. I'm sure you are just as excited as all of us. What does today mean, irrespective of the result, irrespective of whether the mission ends up as a success or a failure, on a day like this, what does it mean for scientists like you?
Well, I think it has been a very anxious moments ahead of us, and the last instance of separating from the orbit and then having a soft landing on the moon is going to be almost like a nightmare. So we had to really be very cautiously watching the entire sequence of events from now until the lander touches down on the surface of the moon and later the rover rolls out. Well, technologically this is going to be a really challenging moment, and of course the last mission, the attempt has failed over the final 2 kilometers above the surface of the moon.
Yeah.
But I hope such an event will not occur again, simply because the ISRO team has done a considerable amount of analysis of the data, as well as carried out the design modifications and strengthening of the system to cater to any eventuality which possibly one can imagine. All possible conditions have been simulated on the ground, and hardwares have been qualified. So that way there is a high level of confidence on the part of the ISRO team in making it a success.
Dr. Nair, could you explain in layman terms for our viewers who are watching this broadcast why those final 15 minutes are absolutely crucial? I believe then it's basically the lander is on its own, it's driven by its own softwares, its own AI, its own sensors and so on, and why it has to go and how it has to go from 6,000 kilometers an hour down to just a couple of meters a second, all in the space of those last 15 minutes. Could you explain to us what are the sort of pitfalls involved in those last 15 minutes and why it's such a difficult thing to do?
Well, one thing is the spacecraft is moving at the time of separation with the speed of nearly something like 6 kilometers per hour. So it's a very high speed, about 10 times the speed of an aircraft.
Yeah.
Now from that speed, it has to come to almost 1 meter per second. It is almost like taking a baby and placing it on a cradle. So that kind of speed we had to realize. So to achieve this, complex maneuvers are involved. Initially, the high velocity has to be killed using the rocket engine in the opposite direction of the movement, and once it reaches a particular altitude, the orientation of the capsule has to be changed so that is vertical, the legs become vertical and prepared for landing. And from then onwards, the gravitational field of the moon will become more effective, and that will start pulling down much faster towards the moon. So this gravitational field has to be precisely balanced with the thrust of the rocket engines, based on the computer commands, so that the velocity will come down to maybe around 10 meters per second or so, and finally at about 100 meters the spacecraft will be made to sort of float. That is almost like the you know, in the science fiction you have seen the aliens coming in the platforms and then hovering over the earth and landing and so on. Similar kind of scenario. The capsule will be floating over the surface of the moon, taking pictures. As you know, the surface of the moon is full of rocks and craters and soft muddy place, soft soil and so on. So with that type of scenario, we have to clearly identify where without any collision or any disturbance the spacecraft will be able to land. So this is done using the onboard computers the camera, the signals will be analyzed by the computer and it will suitably identify the location.
Okay.
In case the location is not proper, it will try to laterally move around. All this has to happen within seconds, and then only the final event can take place.
I want to get a
It is
final word from you,
almost
Dr.
like,
Nair. Once it lands and once the rover successfully comes out, it's going to be on the moon surface, both the lander and the rover, for about 14 Earth days. What is it that the mission is hoping to find there and send back to mission control?
One thing is the surface features and finer details is the one we are looking for. Then the second is the confirmation of the remote sensed data from the Chandrayaan 1 and Chandrayaan 2 data, the spacecrafts. So there we have confirmation about the water presence. So
Okay.
if it can be verified by in situ measurements, that is going to be a big boon. Similarly, the helium-3 is something which we are looking for, the exotic fuel for the fusion reaction and so on. And other minerals also we will get a good picture. Again, there will be seismic vibrations and other things which take place on the moon can be picked up. The temperature profile can be worked out and so on. And it will give some sort of a indication about the virgin condition of the lunar surface in the South Pole region.
All right, Dr. Madhavan Nair, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much for joining us here on this special coverage here on CNN News 18. So, like I said, it's a huge moment, not just for ISRO. The words that we're hoping to hear from the lander Vikram and then the rover Pragyan is that it was a small step for ISRO, but a giant leap for all of India. 1 billion eyes on the lander and rover today, especially so because of the lessons learned from the previous mission, which was unsuccessful. It crash landed Chandrayaan 2. We're all hoping, fingers crossed, that Chandrayaan 3 will be a huge success.